During World War II, the skies above Europe and the Pacific were filled with more than just aircraft. Anti-aircraft guns, known as Flak, fired tens of thousands of explosive shells into the air each day, creating deadly clouds of steel designed to bring down enemy bombers. But here's a question few ever ask. What happened to all that flak once it was fired? For every shell that exploded near a bomber, dozens more missed, malfunctioned, or simply ran out of fuse time. So where did they go? What kind of damage did they do back on the ground? And who were the victims? In this video, we delve into the overlooked consequences of anti-aircraft warfare to uncover the answers. This is a story not just about pilots and dogfights, but about the often unseen fallout of aerial warfare. It's the story of the Steel Rain. To defend against Allied bombing raids, Germany relied heavily on ground-based anti-aircraft artillery, known as Flak. These guns were positioned on rooftops, open fields, and most famously, on massive concrete structures known as flak towers. These towers were built in key cities like Berlin, Hamburg, and Vienna. Each one bristled with heavy anti-aircraft guns, some capable of firing dozens of high-explosive shells every minute. They formed a vital first line of defense for Germany's urban centers. Before the jet age made high-speed interception a necessity, Flak was the best hope for deterring or destroying incoming aircraft. It was not only a physical threat, but a psychological one as well. The shells they fired often burst in midair, leaving behind ominous black puffs of smoke, an unmistakable sign to Allied bomber crews that they had entered hostile airspace. Long before reaching their targets, they knew the guns were waiting. The backbone of Germany's anti-aircraft arsenal included formidable weapons like the 88mm Flak 36 and the Flak 41. These guns could fire up to 25 rounds per minute, launching explosive shells high into the sky in an effort to intercept enemy aircraft. Each round was essentially a grenade fired into the air. Designed to detonate at a preset altitude, the shell would burst in mid-flight, sending jagged metal fragments outward in all directions. Any aircraft caught within this lethal radius risked being shredded by the shrapnel. Flak shells typically combined high explosives with incendiary compounds to maximize damage. The most common type used a timed fuse set before firing to ensure detonation at a specific altitude or distance. Once triggered, the explosion relied on fragmentation rather than precision, creating a deadly zone of airborne shrapnel. Because of their size, ranging from 75mm to 120mm, these guns weren't meant to hit aircraft directly. Instead, they blanketed a target area with timed bursts, increasing the chance of damaging or disabling enemy bombers as they passed through. However, this method came with limitations. Timed fuses lacked adaptability. If a bomber changed speed or course even slightly, a shell might explode harmlessly out of range. Despite this, a well-coordinated barrage could saturate the sky with enough firepower to make any bombing run perilous. Flak became one of the most feared threats in the skies over Europe. It's one of the main reasons why flying in a bomber was among the most dangerous roles in World War II. Like everything subject to gravity, what went up had to come down. For every flak shell that missed its target or exploded midair, the fragments, casings, and occasionally even unexploded rounds eventually fell back to Earth. While the fiery crash of a downed bomber could cause immense destruction, the flak debris that rained down afterward usually had a more limited effect. During an air raid, civilians were typically sheltered in underground bunkers or reinforced buildings, well aware of the dangers from both enemy bombs and friendly defenses. As a result, most of the population was shielded from the falling steel overhead. The fragments from flak shells, though jagged and sharp, were often relatively small and lightweight by the time they reached the ground. Many pieces posed more of a nuisance than a serious threat, scattered across streets and rooftops like metallic confetti from a deadly celebration. Still, the danger was real. Larger fragments could, and did, cause injury or even death. For this reason, air raid wardens, fire brigades, and civil defense personnel were often issued steel helmets, not just to protect against bomb blasts, but against the falling debris of their own city's defenses. While hard data is scarce, there's no doubt that anti-aircraft fire sometimes caused serious harm on the ground. Official records rarely tracked civilian casualties caused by falling flak debris, but anecdotal evidence tells a different story. The attack on Pearl Harbor offers a rare, well-documented example. During the Japanese assault, 68 civilians were killed and 35 more were wounded. While some of these casualties were directly related to the attack, much of the damage came from an unexpected source: American anti-aircraft fire. Only one Japanese bomb is known to have struck the city of Honolulu, but nearly 40 American shells fell in civilian areas. A 1943 investigation by the Army's Pearl Harbor Board concluded that 48 civilian deaths were likely caused by friendly fire. Many shell fragments bore unmistakable U.S. Navy markings, evidence of the chaos and unintended consequences that can follow even a well-meaning defense. Even when flak performed as designed, it still left behind a hazard. Small shards of hot metal rained down across wide areas. For those without shelter, these fragments could injure or kill. Helmets, bunkers, and reinforced structures offered some protection, but nothing could eliminate the danger entirely. In Germany, there has never been a comprehensive study into the damage caused by falling anti-aircraft shells. But what does exist, archival records, local reports, and survivor accounts, offers a compelling and often overlooked glimpse into the unintended consequences of flak warfare. We know that both shrapnel and unexploded flak rounds regularly fell back to Earth. Many of these shells detonated upon impact with buildings, streets, or open ground. While the explosive power of a flak shell was nowhere near that of an aerial bomb, it was still capable of inflicting serious damage and death at close range. The most common calibers used were 88mm and 105mm shells. Their remnants are still discovered today across Germany, often alongside the more notorious dud bombs from Allied air raids. These unexploded shells are a constant reminder that not all of the danger fell from enemy planes. Some of the most detailed records come from Berlin. The main Air Protection Bureau compiled immediate reports after each raid. These documents not only cataloged bomb damage, but also recorded destruction caused by German flak fire. On September 7, 1941, after a raid on Berlin, the damage report listed destruction caused by 57 German flak grenades, 10 of them duds. In the early days of the air war, particularly through autumn of 1940, these reports show that more structural damage in Berlin was caused by flak shells than by Allied bombs. The very first air raid on Berlin on August 26, 1940, is telling. Allied bombs caused only minor damage. But in Dragonerstrasse, a German flak shell exploded in the street, injuring 4 civilians and shattering windows throughout the neighborhood. In Tiergarten, the district hall lost most of its windows to another flak grenade. In the Wedding district, flak shrapnel wounded 7 civilians, one of them severely. On September 7th of that year, the only recorded damage in the Zellendorf district was caused by a flak shell that struck a house on Herwithstrasse. In Prenzlauer Berg, an unexploded shell crashed through the roof of a flat on Dunkerstrasse 84, forcing the evacuation of the family inside. Similar reports appear in records from other German cities and regions. Each one tells a similar story. The defense of the skies often came at a price borne by those on the ground. The dangers of unexploded shells and shrapnel are well documented in passing, but hard statistics on civilian injuries, especially among children, are rare. And yet, scattered throughout the literature of the Second World War is a recurring and striking image: children collecting flak. In the bombed-out cities of Britain, Germany, and the Soviet Union, the aftermath of an air raid often became a playground of twisted metal. In London, historian Angus Calder recorded that boys searched the ruins for shrapnel, prizing pieces of German bomb more highly than the splinters of AA shells. In Germany, flak fragments became prized objects among schoolchildren, but they came at a cost. As noted by Edward Westerman, these splinters could easily wound or even fatally injure children who ventured outside without helmets or protective clothing, even during ongoing raids. In Leningrad, the peril turned into a game. Historian Richard Overy tells of Svetlana Magiyeva and her friends, who would stand outdoors as the flak barrages raged overhead. The game was to see who could stand closest to a falling fragment and claim it as their own. This phenomenon was widespread enough to become the subject of academic study. In his article, A Hard Rain, archaeologist Gabriel Moshenska explored the culture of children's shrapnel collections during the war. Yet even here, the danger was often noted only in passing. The thrill of the hunt seemed to outweigh the risks, even when those risks were deadly. It was a strange byproduct of flak warfare, an instrument of destruction that, once spent, became a child's trophy. By 1943, the skies over the Netherlands had become a daily corridor for Allied bombing missions en route to Germany. In response, German air defense systems in the occupied country were operating constantly. Anti-aircraft batteries blanketed the landscape, and their presence became a regular part of civilian life. The volume of flak fire over the Netherlands was immense, and not always effective. The ammunition used was often of inferior quality, and large amounts failed to explode or miss their targets altogether. These misfires and duds didn't simply vanish. They fell to earth and they caused damage. Remarkably, the Netherlands' nearly 1,200 municipalities kept detailed records of incidents involving falling flak munitions. Most commonly, non-explosive shells shattered windows, pierced roofs, and damaged woodwork. Explosive rounds, when they detonated, were more destructive, often killing livestock, destroying crops, or obliterating barns, sheds, and local shops. The problem was so widespread that a national fund was established to assist those affected. Claims were investigated thoroughly, with background checks conducted to verify the source of the damage and determine whether additional debris or unexploded shells might still be present. Once the wreckage was cleared, the remnants of these munitions were often collected by the German Economic Administration. In some cases, they were recycled or repurposed for local use, yet another reminder that in wartime, even fragments of destruction were treated as resources. From the rooftops of Berlin to the fields of the Netherlands, flak left its mark, not just on the enemy, but on the people and places it was meant to protect. It shattered windows and claimed lives. It wounded children who searched for souvenirs in the rubble. It filled the sky with dread and the ground with jagged steel. Cities kept ledgers of the damage. Nations created funds to repair it. And yet, in the grand narratives of World War II, this story often goes untold. Flak is remembered for its flash and fury, but rarely for its aftermath. And yet it is in those overlooked fragments, in the broken glass and forgotten reports, that we see the full cost of defending from above. This was the unseen price of aerial warfare. A story not just of what was destroyed, but of what fell through the cracks.